Lauren Chen.
Lauren. I have no sympathy for her.
Lauren Chen.
CBC News reached out to Chen, but she declined to comment.
Lauren Chen.
Chen's YouTube channel has over 500,000 subscribers.
You can call it honeypotting or whatever, but this is an attractive Asian woman.
Lauren Chen.
They were persona non grata. They lost their social media accounts, their reputations were shredded, their bank accounts frozen.
Lauren Chen.
I want to be clear that Lauren Chen and her husband have not been indicted.
The whole Lauren Chen thing.
Fuck her.
Yeah, fuck her.
She's a troll.
Glenn Beck's company said it fired her.
Lauren Chen.
The feds usually get their person. They've got really draconian penalties, unlimited resources, limited discovery for defendants, and that's why they win about 98% of their cases. And unless your name is Mark Cuban, you're likely going down.
Hey guys, welcome to Anathema. My name is Lauren. I'm so happy to have you folks here. A big thank you, especially to our live viewers. Right now, we are live streaming on Twitch, X, Rumble, Facebook, and Kick. So big thank you to everybody who is here as this is all happening. And I will have to say, sayonara to this time slot, I suppose. This is the last stream that we are going to be having at this time, 6 p.m. Eastern. Starting next week, there's not going to be any stream this weekend, sorry, but starting next week, we are moving to Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys are still able to make it live, I really appreciate it. But if you can't, then of course I do understand, but I would hope that you would check out, some clips after the fact or listen to the podcast. Because reminder, we are now a podcast available basically wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're an audio only person, you can find us there. Hello, everybody in the chat. AB3103 on Rumble. Lauren, do you like Panda Express? I do actually like Panda Express. Don't get me wrong. Panda Express really doesn't resemble actual Chinese food, but its own thing. It's its own thing and it's still good. I feel that way about like Taco Bell. I like actual Mexican food, the carne asada tacos and all that, but I also enjoy Taco Bell. I think there's space for all types of different food. Catholic Kong. So I guess we have a new viewer on Twitch, and yes, that is something of note because we are just starting out on Twitch. So it's a big deal when there's someone new. Someone's asking if I'm, I guess, a classical Republican, or in the the definitional sense, I'm further to the right than a normal Republican. Catholic Kong, you got me. You've clocked me. Yep, that's right. So, and we have people being naughty in the Twitch chat. What else is new? But we have a lot to talk about, guys. We're going to be starting off the show talking about a new, I guess, task force that the White House has implemented. They're going after specifically fraud. And there's already a new case that they've, I guess, they're going to be bringing to trial. $21 million of Medicaid fraud uncovered in Minnesota. Guess what? To nobody's surprise, the perpetrators are Somalis. So we're going to be looking at that. Then we have a case update for Henry Nowak, still unsure about that. His murderer has been found guilty of murdering him, which is good news, but there are still increasing calls for the police who were involved to be held accountable for the role that they played handcuffing him before he inevitably bled out. And we also have some news for James Tallarico. If you've not heard of him, he is a candidate for Senate in Texas, and he's basically one of the furthest far left radicals that I have seen running for. He's acting as if he's a moderate, definitely a wolf in sheep's clothing. We're going to be taking a look at some of his greatest hits. Trans celebrity children. Have you guys noticed that there is a shocking number of celebrities out there with trans kids? I feel like it's the new thing. The new special handbag isn't actually a handbag. It's a trans child you can tote around so that all of your Hollywood friends can see how tolerant and how progressive you are. We're going to be looking at that. And also, there is a debate going on whether to ban cousin marriage in the UK. Feel like this should be open and shut, but we're gonna be going over all of that, and if we have time, we're also going to be covering some dating news. But let's start talking about this whole fraud issue, and this is coming out of Minnesota once more. So 2 Minnesota women charged in $21 million Medicaid autism fraud scheme. And so we have the photos here. And if you're listening as a podcast, first off, thank you. But you can, they're in the hijab, classic Somali phenotype. And it's funny, I mentioned in an X post that I could, like, there was some sort of riot or protest, and there were two people pictured. They were like wearing masks, but I mentioned that I could immediately tell that these were Somalis and not like regular foundational Black African Americans, whatever you want to call them. And I got called racist for that. So at what point did racist stop being all the other races looked the same versus now I can actually tell the difference between, like, you know, an African American who's been here probably since slavery, disproportionately like West African heritage versus Somali? Because I feel like that used to be the case. Like, it used to be, oh, you were racist if you thought all the Black people look the same or all the Asians look the same. But now I've been called racist for saying that I can tell the difference between an Indian and Italian, as if that were remotely similar at all. That I can tell the difference between like a Somali person versus a West African person. Is that the new racism now, just being too informed about other races? Because I feel like, actually, maybe unironically, if you had questions about any type of like racial difference or crime stat, probably the person who would know most at this point would be an actual racist. But yeah, one of these women is a lot younger than the other. We can see in these mugshots, and one of them this one to the left, she kind of looks amazing for a mugshot. I'll just say it. She looks pretty good. But $21 million, and this is over several years. And I'm just going to say it, with all of these Somali fraud schemes where they're funneling away millions and millions of dollars, I just don't believe that the Somalis are the ones, I'll say it, I don't believe that they're the ones who came up with all of these schemes. I mean, let's think about it. The average Somali immigrant is on welfare. I think it's like 80% welfare usage, especially the kids in the household. IQ is what, 70 or something? Not high. Just barely above, I mean, mental retardation. I'm not believing that they are the ones who organically, of their own accord, through their own devices and wherewithal, came up with all of these schemes to defraud the government out of millions and millions of dollars. I just don't believe it. I think there are other people involved who are helping, like these Somalis. These Somalis are probably just like the people whose name they need on the document, so there's plausible deniability, but I don't believe that there's not someone else directing them to do all of this. I hope we find out who those people are, because there's no way. There's no way that all of these Somalis are just, you know, crushing it in the fraud business just by themselves, because you have to be at least a certain level of smart to carry out fraud. Not that I'm saying that it's a good thing or admirable, but it's not a 70 IQ operation to even like fill out the paperwork, to know about these different government programs. No. So we do have this new entire task force that is designated specifically for going after fraud. It's Assistant AG Colin McDonald. I think he's the head of it. So he recently spoke to Fox News talking about the new initiative.
The scope of this is larger than ever. As Mr. Blanche there in that clip said, we are now putting the necessary resources behind the fraud crisis that we're facing in the country. And we're off to a great start. We're over 450 major fraud events at this point, just in the first 52 days of this fraud division. And we're just getting started. The scope of this is larger than ever.
If you're not familiar, Todd Blanche is now the acting Attorney General since Pam Bondi stepped down. So he was just discussing about, like, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud have been like uncovered recently. And it's shocking that this has gone on for as long as it has. And I've seen people increasingly say, like, what is the point, of paying taxes and being scrutinized by the IRS if, like, people who commit fraud, it's just fine. They're just basically, they got off the hook for the most part. Maybe once in a while they'll get discovered. Oh, on Kick, thank you so much. XSammy626 gifted 10 subscriptions to the community. Really appreciate it. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And if you have a gifted sub, then please go ahead and use those emotes in the chat. That's really cool. Definitely means a lot. And I gotta say, someone who came from a YouTube background, having like the live chat function is probably one of the harder parts of being a streamer. I'm not used to having to do, you know, multiple things at once and have chats scrolling as I'm talking, but it is really cool. And I appreciate you guys a lot. So the thing is, it's great that they're doing like this task force. It's amazing, especially, you know, tax season recently upon us. I'm sure a lot of people feel maybe a little bit better about this, you know, about the amount of money they paid, knowing that it's not just going straight into the pockets of Somalis. But problem is no one going to address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that, you know, the fraud is disproportionately from, I mean, specifically Somalis, but I guess general third world immigrants, because this, I think that's relevant to the story. You know, it's not by and large heritage Americans who are engaged in this type of behavior. I think we need to have a real conversation about, you know, when Western countries open up their doors to people, disproportionately, as of late, they are opening up their doors to, you know, third world immigrants who not only are more likely to commit crime, more likely to be on welfare, but yeah, just like actually loot the coffers, the taxpayer dollars. I mean, clearly, this needs to be examined, right? The immigration system, it's not normal what's happening. Oh, hey, thank you. We have gifted subs on Twitch as well. Hang on, is this the, yeah, so thank you. Guess who farted? This guy. Thank you so much. Not the best username I've seen, but again, really appreciated. I have a feeling that for the most part, if this fraud had been committed by actual Americans, it would be a much bigger deal, because I've seen reports about this on, of course, on Fox News. But for the most part, I think the liberal media, MSNBC, CNN, they're not really touching it, which is pretty crazy. Because if you think of, if you're new here, there was a whole FBI investigation into me. It was all over the news internationally for weeks. And we weren't accused of stealing anything. This was all over a YouTube channel. It was all BS. But, you know, 99% of the outlets who talked about it at the time never updated the story. By the way, investigations closed. They've never been charged with anything. But if you look at these stories where there's like hundreds of millions of dollars from taxpayers that have been stolen, for some reason, there's not the scrutiny. For some reason, there's not the interest. And it kind of feels like a BS double standard, if you ask me. And yeah, again, the immigration aspect of it all, I just don't see. I mean, aside from online, I don't see even, you know, Fox News, they're reporting on this, which is good. They're not really talking about the ethnic component. And it's crazy because Somali, oh, okay, hang on, wait. Stuff is happening on the Twitch chat. What does that mean? Hype train. Oh, thank you for the bits, Fallen Radiant. I appreciate it. Fallen Radiant is one of our Twitch mods, by the way. It's kind of too bad. I have like different chats that are currently open, but it's too bad that you guys can't really all talk to each other across platform. Maybe someday. But here we have this video that Andrew Colvett shared. And it's this woman who is coming out of a restaurant, an IHOP, and it's basically, you can see that it's all Somalis around her. And it's like, she talks about it, how this is a recent phenomenon. Let's watch. Jesus. Oh, hang on. Let's go back. Sorry. She's coming out of a restaurant, and you can see basically everyone else in the restaurant, that 100% Somali phenotype. Jesus. And this is an IHOP. It's not even like she's at a Somali restaurant. And so that would make sense.
Just me rocking my Proud to be American hat. Well, there's literally 50 plus fucking Somalians all over IHOP. I don't understand. The entire restaurant's full. Look, I'm not racist, but that's a takeover. 2 years ago, that wasn't. I've been in this area for most of my life. This is crazy. They were all giving me dirty looks too. It's like, I'm literally in the car. I'm in the car. And I'm surrounded.
Yeah, so not only is she justified in feeling like there's a takeover, 50 Somalis at a restaurant? But she also mentions that this is new, this is recent, and leftists try to gaslight you as to what history is. Like, oh no, Somalis have always been a foundational part of America. I've seen a post recently even saying, no, Somalis were also always a foundational part of Maine. No, they weren't. Okay, this is all new. This is all recent, and they're trying to gaslight you into thinking that there's been no changes, and you're just crazy if you notice that suddenly you look up and everyone is Somali. And it kind of feels like that. In Nashville, the Hispanic population has basically exploded. And I was talking to someone the other day. We brought our car in to be looked at, and he was saying that he doesn't speak any Spanish. It was an option in school. And he didn't think it would be worth it because, he lived in Nashville. What would he need Spanish for? Versus today, it's like, yeah, honestly, you may need Spanish, especially certain parts of Nashville. Gemfax, OMG, Somalis in a restaurant. No, okay, this isn't just OMG, Somalis in a restaurant. It's OMG, let's talk about what is happening with immigration policy and the vast number of people who are being brought over who, by and large, we know this from statistics, are not contributing, are consuming taxpayer resources, are disproportionately committing crime. They're not adding to the country, okay? It is what it is. Fallen Radiant on Twitch 2026 racism is just noticing trends and statistics, not even making judgments, just noticing. Yes, thank you. That is absolutely the case. Poor Aternus 1. Butchering that as always on Twitch. If diversity is such a strength, why isn't China importing infinity Somalians? It's a good question. Okay, so good kudos to the investigators who are working hard on that. I hope they find all of the fraud. And it's really weird how leftists are kind of attacking this initiative because Nick Shirley he kicked all of this off with his expose of the daycare fraud situation. But we've seen that also this is happening, in places like California, who knows how many other states, not just Minnesota. But, if you're a leftist and you support all these entitlement programs, you should want the fraud to be discovered because the more people are stealing from Medicaid, daycare centers, autism centers, whatever it may be, the fewer resources are available to those people. It's the same thing with EBT fraud. Like if you actually support EBT, food stamps as a safety net, you should want that money preserved for the people who actually need it, not just people who don't feel like working and who want to sponge off of the system. Gemfax on Kick, I agree. This is in response to his other thing. But let's apply the same logic to all races. Okay, but I'm sorry, we don't need to have the same logic to all races when you're in a country where one race has been here longer than others. And the increase of those other races is indicative of policy change, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense to be race blind when we're talking about changing demographics, especially if we were talking about from a European perspective, race should matter. Like the indigenous European people, they don't have anywhere else to go but Europe. So other people being Somali, Afghans, people who were clearly brought into the country, their race is significant. I'm sorry. Hey, I take talkers. They're saying the same thing about the Chinese in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Look, I don't want America to become China either. And I don't want China to become America. That's fine. And I totally understand in Canada as well, the number of Chinese people who are buying up, housing in the Vancouver area, some of whom don't even live there. It's literally just the rich Chinese people who want, another apartment. Maybe they want an Airbnb or their kid is going to be coming to school in Canada eventually, but it's empty for the most part. That's not okay either. People who live in Vancouver shouldn't have their property prices driven up and the city made even more unaffordable by people who don't even live, not even just in the city, but in the country, by the way. But let's change gears now to Henry Nowak. That's how I'm going to choose to pronounce the name. So we've been covering the story. Of course, Henry Nowak was the young university student who was tragically stabbed by a Sikh individual and bled out with police on the scene And what's really outrageous about this is that not only did police fail to save his life after he was attacked, but they actually first arrested Henry because his attacker alleged that he had said racist things. So in the moments before he died, Henry Nowak was laying stabbed and handcuffed, being interrogated by the police about whether he was saying racist things. I mean, it's actually dystopian. And I was thinking about this story, saving things that I wanted to talk about. And I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I was actually it brought me to tears just thinking about what his final moments in life were like. You're stabbed multiple places, bleeding out. You try to run away. You're followed by this guy. Finally, the police come, and he probably had a little moment of relief, seeing that there were officers. Maybe they could help him. Maybe he'll be okay. Because obviously at this point, he's going to be feeling the blood loss. But instead of that, instead of helping you, they arrest you. They believe your attacker, who's right there, that they're calling you racist. They're accusing you of being drunk. It's an outrage. Like imagine if that was you. Imagine if that was your brother. Imagine if that was your son. And good on the British people. It doesn't seem like they're letting this story go. It doesn't seem like they're letting this story go. Dan9847 on Twitch. Have you seen the video shared by Lawrence Fox of another incident involving the killer? He has a confrontation where he has what looks like a sword. I don't think I've seen that. But yeah, it's sad stuff. And, there is at least somewhat of a resolution here in that the killer here, we have his mugshot on the left, a Sikh individual wearing the turban. He has now been found guilty of Henry Nowak's murder. So the self-defense, because Henry was racist, allegedly, that defense was not deemed sufficient. But like I said, this isn't the end of the story, because now there's a question of accountability. People want to know who those officers are. They want to see the body cam footage of what happened when they arrived at the scene. And, I posted earlier that I'm very, very interested in knowing the gender and ethnicity of the cops who are on the scene. And apparently, at least according to, let me find some reports, it's now being reported that it was 3 female officers who were on the scene and who arrested Henry. In which, hey, if that's true, I'm not surprised, unfortunately. I'm not surprised, but I am disappointed. I mean, we've gone over how I feel about female law enforcement, but it's like I fully expect hearing that someone was arrested on the allegation of being racist, that it's probably some sort of ethnic female cop, and we've seen the UK is crawling with them. Yeah, just more insult to injury. There's a video, apparently this poster says, quote, where Digwa mocks Henry for several minutes as he's lying and bleeding out. It was played in court. This needs to be released. The public need to know. I agree. And the, let's see, the police chief involved has actually released a statement now about what happened. Apparently they were holding off because the case was still at trial. They didn't want to prejudice the jury, but now that it's over, he's released this statement. A lot of people are saying not good enough.
Today is the first time I can speak to you properly about the murder of Henry Nowak in Southampton after a jury convicted his killer. First and foremost, this is an unspeakable tragedy, and I cannot begin to imagine what Henry's family have suffered. We've not spoken about this before today, as it was vitally important to us that nothing be published which could prejudice the trial and prevent justice from happening. I am deeply sorry that Henry could not be saved. I'm sorry that in the moments before he lost consciousness, he had been handcuffed and arrested.
Yeah, but see, sorry doesn't really cut it, does it? They're saying that, it wouldn't have been possible to save him anyway, even if the officers had arrived earlier. Maybe they could have tried at least. And yeah, I'm sorry, it just doesn't cut it. It just doesn't cut it. I think that people need names. I think there needs to be accountability. You release the names of the officers who handcuffed this poor man bleeding out. And why don't we have a little bit of an inquiry as to what their conduct actually was? Let's see the footage. and we'll decide for ourselves whether they did everything that they could or whether it would not have been possible to save him.
The facts heard in court should leave no doubt in anyone's mind who was lying to officers that night and why we didn't immediately understand what had happened. During the 999 call, when officers first arrived at the scene, and even when Henry's condition was deteriorating quickly, his killer continued to divert the blame, obstruct our inquiries, and never admit the serious harm which had been done.
I'm sorry, but a man is literally bleeding out and you don't notice immediately and you're still listening to this other guy? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with these officers? Like, even if you're like, maybe this guy seems trustworthy, the killer, the guy's bleeding out. You should be able to notice that. You should be able to notice that.
I understand that there were many questions about what happened on the night of Wednesday, the 3rd of December, 2025. In those moments, the officers who attended didn't have all of the information we have today. They were called to a report of an assault and told a man was being detained at the scene. These details were immediately repeated to officers as they arrived. The attending officers sought to take control of a complex situation, and based on what they had been told, they placed Henry in handcuffs and told him he was under arrest.
Okay, you have to get pretty close to someone to put him in handcuffs. No way you don't notice that he's bleeding out, that he's literally bleeding out. Okay, and as people are saying, his face was also slashed. So it wasn't just that, it's dark, it's a wound on the side, we can't see. His face was slashed. He would have been covered with blood. There needs to be accountability for this. This is unacceptable. The first thing they should have done was evaluate, hang on, why is this man seemingly covered with blood? Not like, hang on, we need to make sure that the man who allegedly was racist is in handcuffs.
But within 3 minutes of arriving, they realized the severity of his condition, the handcuffs were removed, an ambulance was called, and they started CPR. The horrendous injuries Henry suffered were internal. The pathologist's evidence at court was clear. Sadly, nothing we could have done that night would have saved him. His wound was difficult to find and had caused a significant amount of internal bleeding. As people worked to try and save him, 3 people were arrested at the scene, including the man now convicted of his murder. A 4th person was arrested at a nearby address. My officers responded swiftly to a situation which was confusing and unclear, and within minutes were giving Henry first aid and trying to save his life. The following day, we referred the incident to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, who've been conducting an independent investigation into our response. We are committed to acting on their findings. Henry Nowak was an 18-year-old who had his whole future in front of him. That future has been cut short through a senseless attack. Today, the person who's responsible for killing Henry has rightly been convicted of his murder.
It's good to hear that they are doing an independent investigation into the police officer's conduct. Elon Musk, we mentioned this last time, he has offered to pay to take the police force to court to figure out what was actually happening. Dan 9847 on Twitch, injuries were internal. How did the knife get into him? I hope they all get charged with manslaughter. Internal bleeding, but also external bleeding. Like, he had been stabbed with a giant sword. You should have been able to know this. And I just don't think that, this isn't good enough. And by the way, in case you were wondering what the police officer was referring to about the other people who were, kind of arrested. So his mother has actually been charged with something because she apparently also tried to hide the murder weapon. Yeah. His entire family was basically at the scene trying to obfuscate what had also happened. Nationalists, beloved mod on Kick, hi Lauren and chat. Good to have you here. Armando Medina. Oh, hey, on Facebook. Nice. Facebook chat agreed. Show the body cam footage. 100%. 100%. And so we have, let's see. There's also concerning reports that not only did the officers just not notice of their own accord that Henry was stabbed when they got there, but that he tried to relay to them this information, but was instead laughed at. So we have this post from Adam Guiazda on X. More and more details are leaking from the ongoing process. The killer called the police instead of an ambulance and lied that it was Henry who attacked him, that he was drunk, insulted him with racist remarks, and knocked off his turban. So by the way, it's been debunked that Henry was drunk. He was not drunk. He was below like the legal driving limit. Hampshire police arrived. It said 3 female officers. I would love to know whether this is confirmed, if this is accurate, because I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. 3 female officers immediately handcuffed Henry, even though he was lying in a pool of blood with stab wounds to his chest and legs. He repeatedly said, "I've been stabbed. I can't breathe." On the body camera footage, an officer's voice is heard. "I don't think you have, mate." "I don't think so, mate." The officer who handcuffed Henry laughed when he said he'd been stabbed. Then they dragged him across the gravel and kept him restrained as he bled out. Only when he lost consciousness did the officers remove the handcuffs and begin resuscitation. Henry died at the scene. Like, honestly, if that's true, jail, prison, everybody, all the officers involved. Like, we've talked about how Derek Chauvin is basically a political prisoner. We all know the autopsy shows George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. He's in prison to satisfy the woke mob. These are the type of officers that actually do belong in prison, because they could have maybe saved Henry. They could have at the very least not made things worse. Like, if you've been stabbed, probably one of the worst things that could be done is to just drag this guy around and handcuff him, move the body a lot. Yeah, that's safe. That's safe. Yeah, laugh. That's crazy indeed. Moreover, it says the police took Henry's phone and his dad's and read all the messages looking for racist comments or jokes. I have heard reports of that as well. That what the first thing the officers did when they got to the scene was look for racist content on their phones instead of actually, trying to save the stabbed man. These are just reports at this time. We don't have any confirmation, but this is what the public deserve to know. It says New Hampshire police has issued a public apology. Despite this, neither the court nor the police have yet released the camera footage. An IOPC investigation, Independent Office for Police Conduct, is ongoing. Many are calling for the dismissal of the officers who were at the scene. These 3 female officers reportedly left the force. I mean, like, dismissal is really, like, that is the least. That doesn't even begin to cover. That's just being fired. People are fired because they show up late. I think if you let somebody die, it should be a lot more than just being fired. Yeah, and so Tommy Robinson, he's also released some unconfirmed texts that corroborate the idea that the police who were on scene first took Henry's phone, checking to see if messages were racist, because that's really the job of a police officer, sure. Yeah, and we have Connor Tomlinson, who's great, by the way. Follow him if you don't. He's pointing out, the idea that they didn't know he was stabbed. Henry Nowak was stabbed in the face and legs. How did the police not see his wounds before handcuffing him and letting him drown in his own blood? No apology will suffice. Release the body cam footage. That's right. So, again, just continued prayers for Henry and for his family. And I hope that the British people do not let this go. There needs to be a reckoning of 2-tier policing, and also, bring this in a conversation about immigration, because there's an argument to be made that if certain people were not in the country, then Henry would still be alive, as he should be. He really should be. Colin on X asks, "Are you ready for Alberta independence?" I am a huge supporter of Wexit, Western Canada exit. I think that Alberta, if you don't know, Canada, there's a lot of, regional variation in politics, just like the US, just like most places. Alberta, the prairies are the oil-rich, more conservative parts of Canada, kind of similar to maybe our Texas. But right now, Alberta is really getting screwed over, especially economically, because they have all the oil, which is a big part of the Canadian economy. They have to give payments basically to the poorer province because there's equalization payments in Canada. The poor provinces are supported by the richer provinces, but there are also a lot of environmentalist bills that have been passed that are restricting Alberta from fully realizing their economic potential because, global warming. So basically, Alberta is getting the short end of the stick in many ways. And if I'm an Albertan, I'm definitely voting for Alberta independence. And actually, as someone who has a Canadian passport, if Alberta does secede, I'm guessing there will be a period of time where, you know, Canadians can like maybe leave or come to Alberta. I would 100% trade Canadian citizenship for Albertan citizenship. Like, it's not even close. Colin also says outside of Edmonton is still 95% white, moving out of the south side, which is very much becoming India and Pakistan. LOL. Yeah, immigration is just in Canada. It's a black pilling conversation. So now let's continue on. Let's talk about trans celebrities. So I don't know if you guys remember, but a while ago, it was this thing where all of these celebrities were doing Kabbalah, which is kind of like that Jewish mysticism. They were all having that little red string on their wrists. And then it seemed like the next fad for celebrities was like adopting foreign kids. All these celebrities were coming back with like African or Asian kids, never white kids, but always visible minority kids. And I'm not trying to shame adoption, but I just find that interesting how it was never kids who were local, who were like of European descent. It's always kids that you could visibly see that they had adopted, whether that was part of the motivating factor to virtue signal. I guess we'll never know. But it seems like and of course, celebrities are still like veganism is still a big thing. These celebrities, I mean, it's basically a hive mind. They have very few, if any, original thoughts. I think one of the new things that all the celebrities are trying to do to keep up with each other, to be the coolest, is transing their kids. Now, I think of the general US population, a very small percent of people are trans, right? It's not, you know, despite what you might think, if you watch Netflix, it's not actually 1 in 4 people being trans. However, the number of celebrities who have trans children, now that is shocking. And I've gone through and I've collected different posts explaining and highlighting the different celebrities that do have trans children. And I think you will be shocked by how many of them there are. Yeah, Colin on X again. Megan Fox has 3 trans sons. Funny how the statistics work out to make that happen. And that's always so it's suspicious when, you know, let's say 30% of these Hollywood A-listers are having trans kids. But then it's literally just alarm bells when your own kids, 3 different ones are trans or multiple ones in the same family. And that we have examples of that we will go over. So as Colin mentioned, Megan Fox is one of the best examples of this because she has, I think, 3 sons, and at least 2 of the 3, if not all of them, are apparently identifying as girls. It's very, very bizarre. And I think she now has like a 4th kid with Machine Gun Kelly. That child, unfortunately, inevitably will be transed, I'd say, as well. It says here by Aminette on X, Megan Fox supports her son's freedom to express via clothing. She says eldest son Noah started wearing dresses at age 2. She encourages it by providing books. Okay, so as someone who has little kids, okay, a 2-year-old does not know they're a trans. Okay, 2-year-olds, they don't know what's going on. A 2-year-old wearing a dress, if they're a boy, that does not mean they're a trans. And now, I'm not saying you need to like take a dress away if your son really wants to, but that's meaningless. Okay, your son is just as likely at that age to want to be a dinosaur, a literal dinosaur, as he is to want to wear a dress. And I feel like for too many of these liberal moms, it's like they're waiting, they're itching for their kid to grab something that does not coincide with their assigned gender at birth, or whatever the libs are calling it. Munchausen by proxy. Yeah, that's right. On Twitch. Okay. Ollie London on X, he put together a more comprehensive list of Hollywood stars with trans or non-binary children, although I will reiterate, this is not all of them. Ben Affleck, Naomi Watts, Gabrielle Union, Charlize Theron, Megan Fox, Jennifer Lopez, Cynthia Nixon, Jamie Lee Curtis, Marcus Gay Harden, Sigourney Weaver. Okay, and so here we have a picture of Jamie Lee Curtis, and what is, I'm sorry, obviously a biological male. That is a rough transition. Okay, you would think with Hollywood money it would be a little bit better. No, apparently not. Yeah, Ben Affleck with some sort of pink-haired offspring. Yeah, it's really concerning. I feel for these kids. Retard Finder, he's been doing the Lord's work and compiling also different images of celebrities with their trans kids. He says, certified retard on celebrity Tori Spelling and her trans son, who now identifies as female, Tori is also stepmother to a gay son. Amazing how celebrities keep producing alphabet kids. Yeah. Yeah, people are calling this trans housing. And this is basically, so like if you're a celebrity, you're probably good looking, wealthy. There's not much you can do to be oppressed. You could trans yourself, but I think that would be like an amount of commitment I would not expect from most of them. Probably easier to just trans your kid. You know, it doesn't require you to change anything about yourself or how you behave, but you still get to have basically all of the same perks of being recognized as accepting and liberal and progressive with your trans kid. British singer Sade and her daughter, who now identifies as a man, more attention seeking from both mother and daughter. Yeah. Okay. Marcia Gay Harden, who I did not recognize from just her name, but looking at her face, I've definitely seen her in stuff. She says, my children are all queer. My eldest child is non-binary. My son is gay. My youngest is fluid. How is this not a red flag if you're a parent? Like, hey, maybe there's something I'm doing here. Maybe this is not normal. That even though it's like 2% of the general population is alphabet, it's literally all of my children. This is concerning. So what's going on here is that, Hollywood pedos are traumatizing these poor children, very likely. Second thing is that they're sending them to some sort of like crazy wackadoo school where they're being brainwashed and probably groomed into being transed as well. It's a sad state for these actual kids. Like, these children are victims. Feel really bad for them. That's terrifying. You're probably like, your parents are all but likely divorced or were never together. And you can think like, okay, well, at least you're going to be provided for financially. Yeah, but your mom's going to troon you for virtue points. Not great. Oh, yeah. So this is that actress with her son. I don't know if the son is like, this is the trans or the gay son. Oh, yeah. And Charlize Theron. So Charlize Theron, she's a special case because it seems like she fell not only for the trans fad, but also the foreign adoption fad. But also she's a hyper feminist who she's gone and adopted kids by herself. So from what I understand, she's never been married, but she has just decided that she wants to raise these kids essentially as a single mom. So yeah, she's gotten 2 boys from Africa and has now decided that they are girls. She says, Charlize Theron, okay, it says, having 2 trans kids is what drives me. What does that mean? Like, this is unbelievably cruel. Not only has she like subjected these kids to life without a father figure, but now, and probably not coincidentally, she's also like both of these kids, they just happen to be trans. What are the odds? Honestly, what are the odds? That's crazy. Arkantos, okay, for some reason, StreamYard isn't wanting me to bring up chats. Can I do this and reshare it? But Arkantos on Rumble says, based white South African woman troons out African males. Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like that's what's going on. Oh, hang on, I gotta pop out chat. Can I? Oh, yes, okay, I fixed it. Yay for me. But yeah, this is weird. Jennifer Garner, yeah, trans. Robert De Niro, yeah, he also apparently has a trans son. Cher, her daughter is trans. Rosie O'Donnell, non-binary. Daughter of Jennifer Lopez, she's non-binary, which is, that's just basically discount trans. Oh yeah, and Cynthia Nixon, so she's one of the actresses who was on, I think, Sex and the City. And so she's talked about, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, how apparently basically all of the children she knows are trans. Weird how that seems to keep happening to celebrities.
Most importantly, I am here today as the mother of a proud trans man. I am here today as the aunt of a proud trans man. My best friend's kid is trans.
Best friend
and my kid's best friend is trans.
Kid's best friend.
My wife and I, our lives are filled with the most amazing.
Oh, yeah, and also she's a lesbian, and so, she's alphabet too. Cynthia Nixon, that's not it's really not statistically possible to just have this many trans kids in your life. I don't know. It's just so progressive. All of the children you know are trans. What a coincidence. Oh, yeah. So Colin Mockery, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I don't know if you guys used to watch, definitely dating myself here, but Whose Line Is It Anyway? It used to be like the stand-up comedy show. So this guy, he's a comedian, and he also has, I don't know if it's a trans, it's just clearly a son with a bit longer hair and lipstick. Is that like low effort trans? I don't know. American actress Ali Sheedy and her daughter Rebecca, who now identifies as a male named Beckett. Doctor Who actor David Tennant. Oh, wow. Okay, so David Tennant, and he has a non-binary son, Wilfred. It says, as early as Wilfred's 10th birthday, David referred to his son with they, them pronouns. I'm sorry, but this is clearly not something organic. Like, no regular 10-year-old is like, actually, my pronouns are they, them. This is brainwashing. Like, they have been introduced by this concept, or to this concept, by somebody in their lives that, I mean, probably for attention, I would say. They're now adopting, because now the kid also says like, oh, I get so much attention if I just say that I'm trans and non-binary. Everyone gives me attention. They say that I'm brave and inspirational. And actually, I think JoJo Siwa, who was a child star and identified as a lesbian for the longest time, she's even spoken about how she felt pressure basically to identify in the alphabet way. See Warner 312 on Twitch. We could joke about this stuff, but dang, it is incredibly disturbing how prevalent it. Yeah, and I don't even mean this as like let's laugh at anybody except the parents, but like it's actually child abuse. I feel for these kids. This is terrible. And we're about to come into Rainbow Month. I don't know if you guys have been keeping track of your calendars, but Rainbow Month is around the corner, June, Pride Month. And so we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. And I think we need to just make sure that we're doing a good job calling it out for what it is. It's child abuse. This is insane. And, these are by and large the same people who say like, oh, you can't consent to, taking on student loans, but they can consent to changing their gender. No. And it's really, really strange to think that simultaneously they complain about gender stereotyping. This transing of the kids, it's nothing but enforcing gender stereotyping, to be clear. It seems like now like a little girl plays with a truck one time and the progressive mom is like, oh, you're actually a boy. I called it. It's like, no, you can play with trucks if you're a little girl. It doesn't make you a boy. American actress Annette Bening, Retard Finder says, also has a trans kid. Her daughter, Kathleen Elizabeth, now calls herself Steven. Cindy Barshop, who is known for starring in Real Housewives of New York City, has twin girls. Apparently one of them now identifies as a boy. So it's an actual, it's a phenomenon. And we have this entire article by Pride, which is, I'm guessing it's just some LGBT interests site. 31 celebrity parents who are out and proud of their trans and non-binary kid. That's a lot. That's a lot. Hang on. What's that guy? Alif Schreiber? Yeah. So Robert De Niro's kid, trans. I didn't know leave. What is it? Am I getting his name wrong? Okay, Melby and Eddie Murphy. Okay, Eddie Murphy's kid. Don't know who that is. I'm really bad with celebrities. I don't know who a lot of these people are yet. Cher. Don't know who that is. Alexis Bellino. Jennifer Lopez. Dean McDermott. Charlize Theron. Gabrielle Union. Oh yeah, there's Jamie Lee Curtis and her beautiful daughter, and then the trans child. Yeah, Cynthia Nixon. Oof. Rough roll some of these kids got, even without the transing, I've got to say. Ali Sheedy, Annette Bening. Who are all of these celebrities? I have no idea. Sigourney Weaver. Yeah, identifies as non-binary. Well, at least non-binary basically means I got a trendy haircut. So that's not something that, at least I would imagine they're pursuing medically. Oh yeah, Busy Phillips. She's the one who celebrated an abortion. Yeah, killed one kid, trans the other. That's great. Colin Mockery. Really, Marlon Wayans. Okay, one of the Wayans brothers, David Tennant. It's like all of them. Actually, all of them. Rosie O'Donnell. This is not natural. This is not normal. This is a dangerous Hollywood fad. And man, I hope these kids end up doing all right and that their parents don't abuse them too severely. I mean, what even is there to say about this, honestly? But speaking of transing the kids, let's talk now about James Tallarico. So if you're not familiar with who James Tallarico is, he is a Democrat politician who is currently running for Senate in the state of Texas. I think his history is basically he used to be a state legislator, and now he wants to work in the federal government. So he's right now basically trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's trying to appeal to the super woke far leftist branch of the Democrat Party, you know, online click points, etc. But I think he also knows that this is Texas, where he's at, and they don't necessarily love all of that. So it's interesting. There's really two sides of him, as we will see. There's the side that I think is open about how far left he is. Everybody is trans, want to trans the kid, everyone be vegan, versus the part of him that knows he has to appeal to a more general electorate and who's trying to appear moderate by saying, oh no, I'm just a Texas boy who loves barbecue. As if there isn't footage of him going on about how great it is to eschew meat. So let's look at this. Yeah, so if you haven't seen what James Tallarico looks like, he has that typical left-wing white male physiognomy where he looks like he's in a perpetual state of being 12, a la Beto O'Rourke, or basically anyone who was ever part of the White Dudes for Kamala movement. And by the way, can we just talk for a second about how funny that was? White Dudes for Kamala's. Like, can we have white dudes for Trump? Or does that not carry the same sort of connotations? Interesting. So the person he's running against, by the way, he has his own scandals, but basically it seems like Tallarico is trying to run as a progressive Christian. And since his opponent is Republican but has scandals, many people are asking, like, well, don't you want to vote for the good Christian in Tallarico? And it's basically one of those things where they're trying to manipulate Christians for their vote. I don't think it's going to work, because let's look at who exactly James Tallarico is. Jason Howerton had a good post about it. Actually, we'll look at some of Tallarico's greatest hits before we look at the Christian question of it. So here's him basically trying to pervert the story of the Virgin Mary's conception of Christ and use it to argue for abortion.
But I say all this in terms of, in context of abortion, because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do, and she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories, that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. Creation is one of the most sacred acts that we engage in as human beings, but that has to be done with consent. It has to be done with freedom. And to me, that is absolutely consistent with the ministry and life and death of Jesus.
Okay, so he is, I mean, wolf in sheep's clothing, majorly perverting what actually happens in the Bible. So what happens is that the angel Gabriel goes and tells Mary that she is pregnant. And Mary says, oh, of course, like God's will. She's, happy to be chosen for this important and sacred task. That's not God asking for Mary's consent to be pregnant, because Mary is a devoted servant of the Lord. Of course, she consents to doing his will, but it's also, if you have sex, I'm sorry, you are consenting to pregnancy. It's like saying otherwise is if I were to say, I don't consent to needing to go pee after I drink all of my soda. Like, it's a basic biological function. If you engage in the act that leads to pregnancy, you are engaging in consent of pregnancy. It's like if I were to jump and then complain that I didn't consent to fall. It doesn't work like that. You don't get to pick and choose whether you consent to, I don't know, biological reality, the laws of physics. It just, consent doesn't work like that. So, the idea that you can consent to sex but not pregnancy, that's a joke. Okay, that's a big joke. But also definitely in the Bible, that is not what is happening when the angel Gabriel goes to the Virgin Mary. Okay, this guy, I mean, he's not a Christian, obviously, but he's probably someone, like, there is definitely an entire workbook, a brochure, a guide for progressives to try to subvert Christianity. And it's interesting because this is not an interpretation of Christianity that has ever existed, but for some reason, these people, they think that they are the real Christians. And it just so happens to fit exactly with what progressive politics says. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. JDH417 on Rumble, the child isn't consenting to being killed. Yeah, you want to talk about consent when it comes to abortion. That's a good point. Oh, yeah. And so this was something he said on, I think it looks like the Joe Rogan podcast, if that's right. So I'd be interested. I might actually try to check out that entire episode and see what other type of lies he's saying. He's also someone who is pro-trans kids. He has this very curious interview clip where does anybody, okay, judging by my demographics of audience, most of you, almost all of you will say no, but if anyone has seen The Vampire Diaries, apparently the actress who played Caroline now has a podcast, because this is, when I first saw this clip, I was like, that's Caroline from The Vampire Diaries. She has a podcast now, but yeah, I guess that's a niche interest.
Something that you love that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children who showed up yesterday at the state capitol to advocate for their humanity. They shouldn't have to, but it was an inspiration to watch.
What? You love trans kids? Yeah, Poochie 9001 on Kick. Candace King. Yeah, that's right, Candace King. Yeah, so what? Okay, and also, like, so first off, he's in favor of transing kids, clearly, but I also hate this. I hate this so much from progressive activists, where it's, if you disagree with, being able to, the concept of being able to switch genders, or the idea that kids should be eligible for these different procedures, it's all, oh, you deny my humanity. No one is denying your humanity. What we are disagreeing with is your self-identification on the basis of a gender you do not belong to. What we are disagreeing with is the idea that a child can consent to a life-altering body modification. That is what the disagreement is about. No one is debating your humanity. Could you imagine if I started telling people, guess what, I'm a unicorn, and someone was like, you're not a unicorn. You deny my humanity. You want to kill me. This is basically what it's like trying to argue with trans activists now. And I don't think it really works at all to convince people to shut up or to change their minds, but it's interesting that they still try. Yeah. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, so he has gone on spiels about the importance of ending meat. He's one of those progressives where it's wrong because of, I guess, the environment and also animal rights. And I'll just throw in here, I don't like factory farming. If there's a better way, smaller farmers, you could support more humane treatment of animals, I'm for that. But the people who are just like, we can't eat meat at all, no. Okay, you work for the WEF. You're an ideologue. It's not fair that, a lion should get to eat meat, but I can't, or that other fish can eat fish, but I can't. But let's hear what James Talarico says about this.
We have, I think, heard more and more issues of animal welfare. I think not just because it's the right thing to do and the moral thing to do, but also it's, as all of you know, necessary to fight climate change. It is now existential that we try to reduce our meat consumption and that we try to respect animals in all aspects of society. And so I am proud to say that our campaign has officially become a non-meat campaign. So we are only buying vegan products from our local vegan businesses. Some of you may know Big Nona's. They were little Nona's, and then they opened up brick and mortar, so another Big Nona's. But we just got our pizza from there today. And so the point is that I think all of us, not just policymakers, but everyone has to take personal responsibility in this effort. We have, I think, heard more and more issues of animal welfare. I think not just because it's the...
Okay, so he's on the vegan train, right? I don't know how you can watch that and get any other message, but this is what he says now. So this is when he's talking about, obviously, he's talking to a very progressive crowd, but look at how he shapeshifts when he's talking to a more general crowd.
They're going to throw everything they've got at us. They've already called me a radical leftist. They've already called me a fake Christian. They've even called me a vegan. And those are fighting words in the state of Texas. You know, I'm an 8th generation Texan. I've been eating barbecue since before Ken Paxton's first indictment.
So yeah, when he's talking to a general crowd, of course I eat barbecue. I'm a Texan. And he has this campaign photo where he's like eating ribs with a napkin wrapped around it. What is that about? But you can see how he's so two-faced. He obviously, I mean, it's not like this is some smear people are getting from nowhere. You're anti-meat. You can be anti-meat in the state of Texas while running for public office. I don't recommend it, but that's what you chose to do. But now he's trying to act like, oh no, I love my meat like everybody. I'm a real Texan. No, you're not. You're a limp-wristed, progressive, pansy. That's what you are. Just embrace it. Run on who you really are. Don't try to lie to voters, because honestly, that feels like what he's doing. I don't know how else to reconcile those two different clips. Oh yeah, he's gone viral for saying really weird stuff in general about like the trans community. I mean, we have this.
Before we go further, I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too. Defending trans Texans is something we have to do every day. Before we go further,
trans abortion access, it's like, are you playing progressive Mad Libs? Are you putting as many buzzwords on the board as you possibly can and trying to come up with a policy for that? Because that's what it feels like. And he's at a church, I think, doing this, by the way. This is what counts as Christianity in James Tallarico's view. Oh yeah, he's also said God is non-binary.
You said God is non-binary. What did you mean by that?
well, I think I was being intentionally provocative with that statement. But what it means is that God can't be defined by human categories. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Galatians, says that in Christ there is neither male nor female.
You said
okay, so this is how you know he's not actually a Christian, because it's very clear throughout Scripture that God refers to himself as God the Father. Christ refers to him that way. And he talks about how there is neither male nor female, for we are all one in Jesus Christ. That's not talking about the characteristics of God or Jesus Christ. That is talking about the body. Okay, as Christians, there is neither Jew nor Greek, neither male nor female, for we are all one in Jesus Christ, saying that in the eyes of the Lord, we are all one. We are all the same through him, which is very true. He's talking about how the covenant that was originally for the Jews is now available for everyone. And God, through Christ, he welcomes all. That is not to say that God is non-binary. No, Paul is talking about how we are to view each other, not the characteristics of God. God the Father is not non-binary. And the fact that James does not know this just goes to show that he's not actually a Christian. Okay, he is not someone who believes in Christ, who studies the Bible, who believes that the infallible word of God. He's merely he's trying to wear Christianity as a skin suit in order to subvert it and cause rot from the inside. That's what he's doing. And I pray to God that the voters in Texas recognize that. Okay, we are now in the chat discussing Pretty Little Liars. That was a guilty pleasure show of mine for a hot minute. I did not make it to season 8 though. It's a show that was never good. It was entertaining, but it had a very dramatic fall off after the main actress, Nina Dobrev, ended up leaving. They continued the show for, I think, 2 more seasons. I could not get past season 7 though. It was, again, never good. I will never call it good, but it was kind of entertaining. So those are my feelings about the Vampire Diaries. Have you guys seen Jenny Nicholson's video about the Vampire Diaries? It's pretty good if you haven't seen it. Okay, I think we have it here. Let's watch more of James Tallarico's greatest hits.
Did they teach you in Sunday school that Jesus Christ himself was a radical feminist. The American flag is such a complicated symbol for most of us. God is non-binary. You can't call yourself a Christian and reject the stranger seeking asylum at our southern border. Our trans community needs abortion care too. Modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6.
I was like, there's a lot to go over, but why 6 biological sexes? Why not 12? Why not infinite? 6 seems like a weird number to land at.
Prophetic voices like Jesus have helped me reckon with my own whiteness. Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front. We are trying to fundamentally change the politics in this state and in this country. Yep. No need to sit and cry over, your whiteness or your masculinity.
Okay, so this is who James Tallarico is. Let us be perfectly clear. He's not a Christian. He is a far radical leftist who wants to trans the kids, who wants abortion for everybody. He wants to delegitimize masculinity. He wants to shame white people. This is who he is. They're going to pretend, they're trying to pretend that that's not who he is, but it is. Okay? And here we also have Tallarico posted a guide to helping illegal aliens evade ICE and also called him his he called the illegal aliens his constituents. I don't think that's what the average Texas voter wants. I'll just say that. He's also, the American flag is a complicated symbol. You should not be an American government if you think that, okay? And look, I get it. You can have criticisms of America, of any country. Doesn't mean you don't love it. You can criticize the government. Doesn't mean you don't love the country. But a flag represents everything about the country. And I think more than anything, it represents the people of a country. And that's kind of why, no matter how much I might dislike a country, I would never desecrate its flag. I have my criticisms of, let's say, the UK. I would never burn a British flag because it represents not just the government, but also the people. And so if you're an American and you can't recognize that, that's a you problem. That's 100% a you problem. You should never be ashamed of your own flag. Yeah, and especially if you're trying to be an American congressman, you should not be disrespecting the flag. I mean, we also have, he posted, I don't know if you guys remember the Ahmaud Arbery case, but he posted at the time, quote, this is still up on his X account, white skin gives me and every white American immunity from the virus. The virus he's talking about is racism, by the way. But we spread it wherever we go, through our words, our actions, and our systems. We don't have to be showing symptoms like a white hood or a Confederate flag to be contagious. Buddy, go to hell. Oh my gosh. This is what, honestly, and this is basically, I think all the opposing campaign needs to do is just run his greatest hits. Oh yeah, he's also got this post. Black Americans in a church, Mexican Americans in a store, Asian Americans in a spa. Radicalized white men are the greatest domestic terrorist threat in our country. 2021, he posted that. I mean, if he gets in, I don't know what we're going to do. Goodness. Yeah, Sammy626. Hey, those whites that kissed black folks' feet. Basically, I'm surprised there hasn't been a video release of Tallarico just sobbing uncontrollably when George Floyd died. And so now let's get into the conversation about, who to vote for, because his opponent, the Republican, he has some scandals. So, the argument is already being made, like it was for Trump, that, hey, if you're a Christian, you can't vote for this candidate because of his personal life. You have to vote for our actual satanic LGBT communist. Jason Howerton, I think is that. Yeah. So he has a good post that I want to read in response to that argument, because it's being made in relation to the Tallarico race, but it's made often. Yeah, and Perkunas on Twitch, that guy has skeletons in his closet 100%. Anyway, you're right. We probably just don't know about them yet. Okay, Jason Howerton. Since I'm going to be hearing this for the next 6 months as a Texas voter, let me answer the question. You would vote for an adulterer over James Tallarico? That's not very Christian. Here's the truth. I would rather vote for almost anyone else who is going to at least advocate for conservative policies over a literal heretic who wears my faith like a skin suit, advocates for policies that harms children, endorses immorality, and generally harm society. Ken Paxton has personal baggage. I don't deny that, but Tallarico has plenty too, and he openly mocks God's law and treats Jesus as a political mascot, all while pushing a radical far-left agenda that would be a disaster for my state. And see, that's what it's about, I think, for a lot of people. Like, obviously, if we had the choice between two candidates with the same policies, you would want the one with fewer personal scandals. I think that's fair. However, we're talking about who is the best fit for a job, not who you would personally be friends with or want to date or whatever it is. So if we're asking who's better at the job of implementing policies that represent the state of Texas and the federal government, I'm sorry, but personal baggage does not matter as much as the actual policies that the person in question supports. And I don't even know why that needs to be spelled out. And it is the same argument they made against Trump. Like, oh no, he's had scandal, so you should definitely vote for Hillary Clinton instead. I'm sorry, what? Do you guys remember that? They were actually trying to paint it as if Hillary Clinton is the less scandalous candidate. Insane. Like, talk about gaslighting. Thankfully, it didn't work. But yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to do here with Tallarico. Yeah, like, this guy has personal baggage, therefore vote for the person who's going to trans the kids and hates you because you're white. Insane. Yeah, Joel Berry, he also had a post about that. He says, yes, between a guy with personal scandals and a guy who wants to use the power of government to medically rape your children and force your daughters to share locker rooms with male autogynephilic perverts, and by the way, have just abortion on demand. This is a no-brainer, and Christians shouldn't apologize for it. Yeah, I mean, that's really, I think, what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Pig Monster 220 Real on Kick. Sounds like this guy wants to roll in and start doing creepy weirdo stuff. Yeah, he's definitely weirdo. I mean, people have mentioned in the chat, he supposedly has a girlfriend. No one's seen him. Joker 625 on Rumble says, isn't Saint Tallarico following a dozen OF girls on Instagram? I don't believe that this guy is straight personally. I'm not even trying to like, haha, you're gay. I don't get the straight vibe for him. I mean, it's always hard to tell with a progressive, let's be real. But hey, have you ever noticed that generally speaking, progressive males, they're like very effeminate, except if that progressive male identifies as a woman? Because I swear, like, the progressive males who decide to transition, they're always like the most buff, the strongest jaw, like 6'3" Chad physiognomy. But like the only progressive males who actually have any like testosterone in their systems are, strangely enough, the ones who try to become female and who do not pull it off. In any case, now let's talk about cousin marriage, because that's a fun thing to discuss. So the UK, we've been covering how they are having a national conversation about cousin marriage. The amount of like mass migration from third world countries, if we're talking about the UK specifically, like Pakistan is a huge one. It's huge. And it's manifested itself in interesting ways, because cousin marriage, as you might know, not really a widespread British custom. However, because of the growing Pakistani community, there is an increasing number of cousin marriages that are happening, and that is actually causing an increasing number of birth defects. I did a short about this a while ago, but the Pakistani community is vastly overrepresented in birth defects because of the inbreeding. And now, I don't ever recommend marrying your cousin. A lot of other people you could marry, but if you marry your cousin once, you might be okay. But when you generation after generation keep inbreeding, yeah, the likelihood of genetic problems skyrockets. So now they're talking about banning cousin marriage in the UK. This was never, the fact that it's not banned yet isn't because it was happening often and it was like, okay, it's just, it was happening so rarely it wasn't really a topic of conversation. But Nigel Farage, who's head of the Reform UK party, he put out, Sweden has just banned cousin marriage. It causes serious health problems in certain communities, and it's inherently un-British. We must have a serious conversation about a ban in Britain too. That's all well and nice, but instead of a conversation about banning cousin marriage, a lot of people who are, more on the Restore Britain path, like Rupert Lowe, they were wondering why not? Why not just ban it? Like, why are we talking about having a conversation? So he put out in response to Nigel, this is also pathetic. Commit to banning it. That's exactly what Restore Britain will do. Show some balls for a change. The official Restore Britain account. We don't need a serious conversation about a ban. You are weak. A Restore Britain government will proudly ban cousin marriage day one. I'm not really seeing any downsides, honestly, to banning cousin marriage. Oh, sorry, the aristocratic utensil. He had a good take. Banning cousin marriage is the gayest, most pathetic, weak, limp-wristed thing you can do. The actual competent policy would be to get rid of everyone who engages in it, which, let's be brutally honest here, are non-European dysgenic retards. Yeah, we're not a fan of the cousin marriage. And what's funny is that, I'm sure that Nigel Farage probably thought that he was being kind of like edgy by saying, let's ban cousin marriage. But not only did Restore go after him, he actually also had conservative, so Tory MP Richard Holden calling him out for not being strong enough against the cousin marriage. Richard Holden says, so weak. If he spent more time in Parliament, he'd see we're beyond conversations. Nigel should catch up with Kemi and the Conservatives, who've already tabled laws and amendments to ban first cousin marriage. It's time for action with Conservatives, not words from Reform. Now, when you're getting outflanked on the right by the Conservative Party in the UK, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. Tune link 1 on Kick. These are all just useless workarounds for not deporting foreigners. Very much the case. And that's how I feel about a lot of these like knife bans that they're doing in the UK. You shouldn't have to ban, kitchen utensils and cutlery in order to be safe. You should just deport all of the people who are actually committing the crime and doing the violence. That's a much better way to go about things instead of trying to, baby-proof your society. Like, just stop trying to do that. Just get rid of the criminals. Oh yeah, Dan9847 on Twitch. The cost of the NHS alone is staggering. We're talking about the cousin marriage. And when the babies die, they sue too. It's not a good practice. Yeah, I don't know if we have any libertarians in chat who might be, consenting adults, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the kids who result from these incestuous marriages, that's unfair to them. I don't even know if this is something that libertarians are arguing against. But yeah. 109847 on Twitch. Labor voted down the cousin marriage ban, but did ban step family porn. Well, I guess there's that. Sorry. Wondering about what's happening online where step family porn is actually a thing. Let's now talk about the horrors of 2026 dating. Now, this was something that I had in mind to cover last show. We didn't get to it, but I do want to talk about it. So dating, I think, is one of those areas of life that has been made infinitely worse by social media. I think social media is not inherently bad. I mean, I've met a lot of great people on social media. If you have a niche interest, it allows you to engage with the community, even if there's not people who share that interest right around you. But when it comes to dating, I think for a lot of people, it basically has just allowed our neuroticisms to grow bigger and bigger and spread. And it's been bad all around. And I think we can see this empirically by, since social media has exploded and online dating has gotten bigger and bigger, we're pairing up less. We're getting married less. It's not been good. It's not been good for the human race. And there was this one story that I saw that really made me go what? Are we really doing this? So this was posted. It's something from Reddit r/Williamsburg. The poster asks, do men commonly send Ubers to bring women to dates in Williamsburg? He says, I was talking to a woman for a few weeks, had been on 2 dates in Manhattan and FaceTimed a few times. I invited her to Williamsburg, my hood, for a brunch date. She said yes, and then asked how she'd get there and if I would send a car for her. I assumed this was a joke since she lives in Greenwich Village, so like 15 to 20 minutes away. So I laughed and said I had full faith in her to make it to Brooklyn. She quickly called off the date and broke things off. Is this a common expectation of NYC dating? I could understand calling an Uber for my date at the end of the night if it's late, there are no good subways, etc. But for a daytime date when there's an extremely easy subway trip, this makes no sense to me. And I like worth noting here that the woman in question was 27. So a full-grown adult, I'm assuming, who's able to get around independently. And okay, so part of how weird dating has gotten has also, like, yes, social media, as I mentioned, but also I think the fact that people are still dating older and older and older. Like, we have more baggage, there's more expectations. It's just not good. Like, when people are, for the most part, pairing up in their early 20s, a lot of the conversations that we have in dating, like, well, how much does he make? Well, I want $1 million. When everyone is in college students dating other college students, this doesn't happen, right? The expectation is not that, oh, you've had enough time to make millions of dollars in savings or go on all of these expensive dates because like everybody is broke. And I think that's kind of how it should be, honestly. I think like the easiest relationships are when you meet young, no one has anything, but you can build together. Because it seems like the older you get, the more issues that you have. Like, oh, well, I'm a 27-year-old woman, but I, for some reason, still expect a man to call me an Uber. I mean, it would be a nice thing to do. But the fact that she called off the date because he thought she was joking about it, that's like, come on. Come on. Arkitos Rumble, do you want your potential mate on the subway, especially the New York subway, I guess? Yeah, that's a good point. And anyway, everyone is basically chiming in here saying she's correct. He offered a date that's convenient for him in his neighborhood. Why can't he plan something in her area so he travels or suggests a middle point? She found him equally entitled. Yeah. Hardest Hit says men in New York are deadass ordering Ubers for their date just for the chance to interact with them. It's insane. I mean, and there are just like so many of these, I guess, unknown rules for dating now. I saw on TikTok a shocking number. Like the first video I saw about this, I thought it was just one girl who was crazy, but I've seen increasingly more and more women talk about how if they set up a date with a man and he does not text to confirm the date the day of the date, they assume it's not happening and they ghost him. And no, they under no circumstances will be the ones to confirm themselves. He needs to be the one to reach out and confirm. Otherwise, it's assumed the date is not happening. Is it just me, or is that crazy? Because I feel like that's actually crazy. Pig Monster 2020 real on Kick. I'm questioning why he didn't just go pick her up, but nobody has a car. Yeah, I think it's the New York version, apparently, of going to pick up your date, because people don't really drive as much in New York, is ordering her an Uber. Yeah. It's insane. Okay, so let's look at this TikTok trend of confirming. So I'm letting you guys know this. If you're a man and you are single, apparently you need to be confirming the date, the day of. Or actually, you know what? Don't confirm the date, because if she sticks around or texts you first to confirm like a normal person, you'll know that you're not dating some highly neurotic weirdo. Okay, let's look at this.
Men who are dating, just going to hit you with a reminder. If you ask a girl out, please confirm the date the day before. 24 hours in advance, confirm the date. Okay? You don't need to talk to her every day leading up to the date. You don't need to talk to her on the phone. You don't need to text message her every day. Leave the talking for the date. But please, for the love, confirm the date the day before.
And this is like a whole genre of video, and I don't understand why the girls don't confirm themselves. Okay, I'm narrating for the audio only podcast listeners. Amen said we would have a date today, so let's see how long until he mentions something. 7:50.
My boys playing hard to get, and I like my men all in competition.
Actually, I'm going to turn off the volume because I don't want to get copyright strike. 11 a.m. just finished the first final, but he just said his grandpa died. Okay, well, I mean, that's fair. But you could tell she was about to make a whole TikTok shaming this man, and like what? Because he didn't confirm early enough. Yeah. And there are all these videos of women saying, like, let's see how long it takes for him to confirm the date. And they're making these videos for other women. So these are other women who have made up some standard that men are not aware of. And like they're feeding off of it. And this is toxic femininity at its core. Like these women may be throwing away perfectly good guys because some crazy TikTok ladies invented a rule that no one else is aware of. Oh, sorry. We have a Rumble rant. Let me get that up. Thank you so much. The Raven 99, great show. Do you think the UK is cooked? Who do you think the next British Prime Minister will be? So I think, like, 4 years ago, I thought the UK was cooked. But I think there is enough of a movement now, enough of a nationalist sentiment. Remigration is becoming a main talking point. I fully believe in the will of the British people to reclaim their country. And I think that's exactly what Restore Britain is all about. And who do I think the next British Prime Minister will be? I would love for it to be Rupert Lowe. And I hope that, in his lifetime, he will be British Prime Minister. Realistically speaking, though, I think the next British Prime Minister will be Nigel Farage. But I hope that at least is a step in the right direction from Keir Starmer. But I think, obviously, if you watch my stuff, you'll know I'm Restore over Reform. And I'm hoping that the UK can get it done because, think about it. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the concept, even saying we need less migration, that was considered controversial. But now, just a few years later, remigration is the standard. Remigration is the talking point. So taking people who are already here and making them go back. We have that going on in the UK, in the US as well, mass deportations. Canada, they've so far, all they've done is managed to lower the number of people who are coming over. They haven't gotten on the remigration bandwagon yet, but I think there's hope. And, the Overton window has really shifted a lot when it comes to the migration debate, just in recent history. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I am cautiously. We'll see. But, the British people, they have a long history. There's a lot of them who have a lot of pride in their country. And, I don't want to be a doomer. I don't want to be a doomer. Pig Monster 20. I just did the bird hands. I'm sorry. But it's not lame when I do it because I'm saying good things. So, it's different. Dan 9847, Germany is trying to send back 700,000 Syrians, and Syria said no thanks. They are a net positive to Germany. If they're such a net positive, they can get them back. And so, I think right now we're going to see the wheat being separated from the tares. So I think the UK is on the right path. There have been other nations that have said okay, some European countries never wanted migrants. Okay, you have Poland, you have Hungary, but I mean, France, it's seeming like their nationalist anti-migration movement is having a little bit more trouble getting its feet off the ground. Same with Germany as well. So I think, far right anti-migration parties are on the rise everywhere in Europe. But right now I'm most hopeful for the UK. Aside from, of course, like I mentioned, those European countries where they never invited the migrants to begin with. Oh, what a blessing it would be to be from one of those countries. Can you guys imagine? Can't imagine what that's like. I mean, it's definitely very different than the reality in Canada. Oh, okay. So last story before we go, we have a little bit of an update on the Odyssey. And by the way, thank you everybody for the well wishes about Papa Chen. My dad, if you've been watching me for a while, you'll know that we used to have a media channel together, Mediaholic, and we did media reviews together, movie reviews. But I just kind of gave an update that he's going through some cancer treatments at the moment. So any prayers would be appreciated. And he's had rounds of chemo that have they take a lot out of you. But we're really hoping that we can do an Odyssey review together. I'm not sure what that'll look like since I stream now, and I don't think he'd want to be on stream, but we'll definitely figure something out. Maybe I record his segment like beforehand and then we play it. But he's really hyped for an Odyssey review. Oh, another Rumble rant. Thank you. Taper Tantrum 6. Conservatives ban porn. Also conservatives. Wow, the women of this generation are sure demanding. Conservatism is evil, pro-feminism and anti-man. Without porn, I would have nothing in this world. No. You with porn, you don't have anything. Porn isn't something that you have. It's a vice that you indulge in. And we can all complain about how entitled a lot of women are on here, but the average woman is not one of those caricatures that we see online. And it's worth taking the time to actually find a good woman and leave a legacy, build a family. Like, porn isn't going to hug you when you come home from a day at work. A wife would, though. Kids would. Yeah, I mean, without porn, I would have nothing is crazy work. Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, porn is not good for you. It's really not. And I'm sorry that you feel this way, but indulging in pornography more is not going to help anything. It's not going to it's not going to improve things. Yeah, that's it's bleak. It's bleak. And I'm not saying it's easy, but even without like the potential of finding a wife, porn is not good for you. It's not good for your brain. It's a deeply evil industry that I firmly believe has basically been designed to chip away at Christianity in Western nations. China has banned OnlyFans, and I think honestly that's the right move. I'm not seeing any downsides to banning OnlyFans. See Warner 312, it's like saying a Coke fix will better your life. Yeah, very much so. Leonardo boy, build a family, love your wife / husband, have kids, make your home holy. 100%. Poor Artemis 1 on Twitch. Porn also isn't going to wait for me to get home from a 12-hour shift and ask me, would you still love me if I was a worm? Okay, not all women do that. I've actually never met a female friend who would also do that. Oh, interesting point. Okay, Jeriski 1 on Twitch. China is also 90% atheist. Thoughts? China isn't 90% atheist. The Chinese are deeply spiritual people. Okay, they have their own like kind of folk religion is wrapped in Buddhism. They have their own deities like Guan Yin. Okay, that's not atheism. Atheists are not superstitious people. Atheists are not wearing red underwear when the Lunar New Year begins because it's lucky. They're not doing stuff like that. Okay, atheists are not praying and burning money or cars or whatever it is to go up to their ancestors. And these are all Chinese deeply held traditions. So no, 90% of Chinese are not atheists by the traditional sense. Although I do wish that that Christianity would continue to grow and thrive in China. Sorry, just catching up on chat. Axel Foley, China doesn't need OnlyFans when they have all that gooner anime porn. I think you're thinking of Japan because China is not as much into that. Part of that is the government censor, which is like, you know what? I'm not even going to be mad at them for that. But like I said, okay, let's cover this Odyssey story before we go. This is from the Babylon Bee. No, sorry, not the Bee, which is like their, I guess, sister site that covers like actual news that's just kind of unbelievable. So Lupita Nyong'o apparently has never heard of the Odyssey before she was offered the role of Helen, and she has a master's from Yale. Yeah, Chris Nolan's adaptation is reaching levels of irony that were previously thought to be impossible. Lupita Nyong'o is quoted as saying, I really had no idea what the Odyssey was. She said in an interview, I was like, oh snap, I don't know the first thing about this. So it was a crash course. I picked up the books and read them immediately. I have this film to thank for my Greek mythological education. And it says, and by picked up the books, she really means she read the Odyssey and listened to the Iliad, and for good reason. Okay, so that's crazy because, I mean, you live in a Western country. That's a major work. I would expect even people who aren't from a Western country to know what the Odyssey is. But yeah, diversity hire, check. Totally unprepared for the role, check. Graduated from Yale without ever encountering a book that most people study in 9th grade English class, check. This thing is going to be just a nightmare. And it makes you wonder, like, if you don't, like, what was her preparation for the role? That's what I don't understand. Kansai, why would some African woman have any idea? Because it's an internationally acclaimed and important work, even if it's like, even if she's from Africa, and she also again studied in Yale, which is a Western university. I would assume you should know about that. But in any case, that's basically it for now, guys. This is the last stream at this time slot. Reminder: no stream this weekend, but next week, new schedule going forward will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So hope to see you guys then. But again, if you can't catch the live stream because of the schedule change, I totally understand. But please, in that case, listen to the podcast wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch. We share clips on X, Facebook, Rumble, basically everywhere. So in that case, and thank you for all the prayers, the well wishes for Papa Chen. We all appreciate it. So have a good evening, and I'll see you next time.